should be looking at the quiz, except for those people who got 22s, because you are just awesome. Solve by graphing. If you miss this, I want you to get your calculator out, and I want you to press exactly the buttons I tell you to press. I want you to go to the window and make sure that it is set in the standard form. That means x min is -10, x max is 10, and x scale is 1, and do the same thing for the y's. Exactly the same thing for the y's. So make sure that window is set. All right. Now we're going to put this equation into our calculator. So we go to y equals. If there's something in there, hit clear and it'll go away. Hit 2x. And some of you are not using the right x. X, right here, x. There, the variable button that has an x on it, right there, second row, second column, x. Squared. Plus 3x minus 7. Hit graph. You should see a picture that looks like this. This is the first point we want to find. We also want to find this one, but we can only find one at a time. So what do we press? Second calc. Calc is in the top row right above the trace button. Press second trace. That gives you the calc menu. Go down to 0, hit enter. Right? Now we're going to go left, hit enter, go right, hit enter, and then put it right on there and hit enter. Now what I just did was, when I hit second calc and then picked 0, my cursor came on the curve. I saw a flashing thing on the curve. Move it over here and press enter. Move it down here, press enter. Move it here, press enter. And it should say -2.7660. That's the number we're looking for. Now, if yours doesn't say that, then you need to come see me before or after school so we can figure it out. Because everybody's should say exactly the same thing. If yours doesn't, you are wrong. You are doing something wrong, and we need to figure it out. Because next Tuesday, you're going to have to do this for more points. Now, we need to do this one exactly the same way. We start over. Second calc. Pick 0. Now, set the cursor so it's over here someplace. Use your arrow buttons and set it so it's over here someplace. Then set it so it's up here someplace. Here we're on the left, here we're on the right. We're talking about that point. This is the left, this is the right. And then move it about right there. And the calculator should say 1.266. That's the other answer we're looking for. So again, I'm not going to take one more minute of class time. We've been through that several times. If you are not getting it, then you need to come see me or find a friend. Right? Those are the answers. Okay, next. Solve by completing the square. Step 1, we're going to complete the square. You have to pay attention to the directions. If you use the quadratic formula on this, you can get the right answer, but you did it wrong, so you didn't get any points. Complete the square. Step 1. Divide by 3. So we end up with x squared minus 20x plus 8 equals 0. So far, so good? Now what? Move the 8 to to the other side so that I have room to add something, right? What am I adding? Half of 20 is 10, and 10 squared is 100. What is this? X minus 10 squared, 92. Now what? Square root both sides. So x minus 10 equals plus or minus the square root of 92. Now wait a minute, 92 is 2 times 46 is 2 times 23. There's 2 of those right there. Now, I don't know what vocabulary you use last year. I hear people talk about jailbreak and stuff. I don't understand all that. But whatever you have 2 of comes out. Period. However you describe that. Whatever you have 2 of comes out. So the 2 comes out and the 23 stays in. You have to have 2 of something to bring it outside the radical. So my answer is 10 plus or minus 2 root 23. Anybody have a question about that one? All right, then we've got the quadratic formula. Now we had a lot of points missed on this problem at various places. I'm going to use the quadratic formula, and there's some of us that don't have it memorized yet. Moses, how much partial credit do you get if you don't have the formula memorized? None. None. You have to have the quadratic formula memorized. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There is no reason you don't have that memorized. In this particular problem, a is 3, b is negative 4, and c is negative 2, right? Right here they are. So all I do is take those numbers, plug them into that formula. So here we go. X equals 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 4 times 3 times negative 2. I think some of you don't know how to use your calculator. I think some of you would be better off if you just did this by hand. What's going to happen with the double negative? It's going to become an addition. 4 times 3 is 12 times 2 is 24. See, you don't need a calculator. That just confuses you. Some of you. That's 40. Now, if you stopped there, you missed a point because you didn't simplify your problem. 40 is 2 times 20, which is 2 times 10, which is 2 times 5. Now, we just talked about it. If you have 2 of something, it comes out. If you don't have 2 of it, it stays in. So we have 2 root 10. 2 comes out, and there's a leftover 2 and 5. So we have 4 plus or minus 2 root 10 over 6. Some of you had that, and you still missed a point, because why? It simplifies. You can take a 2 out, a 2 out, and a 2 out, so the final answer is 2 plus or minus root 10 over 3. Because I take a 2 out of here, a 2 out of here, and a 2 out of here. You cannot take a 2 out of here and a 2 out of here. You got to take it out of everything. You cannot take a 2 out of the radical. If it's under the radical, it's untouched. You can't mess with it. It's only the numbers outside the radical that you can cancel. There's your answer. A lot of people miss that one. Everybody got it now? And then we had a lot of people miss this last one too. Now I want you to just think about solving a regular equation. Do not get all freaked out about the radical. If you had a regular equation to solve, wouldn't you want to get rid of some of these extra numbers so that you can have just that? What would you do with that 6? You would add it to the other side. Now, if you wanted to, could you get rid of that too?
Yeah.
How would you get rid of that? Divide it. Some of you were subtracting it. No, 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 no. We divide it so that it cancels out. Now what do we have to do? Square both sides. Subtract 1 and divide. Now, what do I have to remember to do? If you have a little check mark on your paper like this, it means I'm reminding you, what are you supposed to do with problems like this? You have to check it. Now, those of you that got the wrong number here, because you made a mistake up here, you would have discovered that, and some of you did. Some of you said it was extraneous because you solved this and got, you know, let's say 6 or something. And when you went and checked it, it didn't work. You're right, because you had the wrong answer. 5 works, but I should check it. So back into the original. What's 3 times 5?
15.
Plus 1?
16.
Square root of 16?
4.
So I have 2 times 4 minus 6. What's 2 times 4?
8.
Minus 6 is indeed 2. So it checks. All right? Now, it's too late for this quiz. This quiz is over. What I need to know is, if you had these 4 problems on the test, which you will, are you going to do better? Those of you that struggle a little bit, are you going to do better? We cleared up issues.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get out our note sheets then. And I want to go back. And do a couple more from the note sheet. This is, I'm in P7, and this is 1B. And I'm only doing this for review. I want to make sure we remember how to do this. This is 1B. I'm missing Taylor today. Anybody else? So I just want to refresh our memories here on 1B, how we do this problem. Does anybody remember from yesterday? I'll give you a hint. I'm going to draw a number line. Julian?
Take the opposite of 5.
So right here in the middle of my number line, I take the opposite of what's inside the absolute value. Okay? Then what do I do? Savannah, did you remember what I do next?
Then you, on the right side, you do 6.
Exactly. I go 6 forward this way, and then I go 6 backwards this way. That number right there. So that would put me at, if I started at -5, that would put me at 1 and -11. And I put solid dots because that's the symbol in the problem you're equal to. And now I have to figure out, I always either shade between those two dots or outside of those dots. This is less than, so it's between the dots, squishing in, smaller numbers in between. So your answer is everything between -11 and 1, which you can write in your interval notation if you prefer. Remember, the bracket means closed dots. Now I want to look at maybe 2F. Did I do that yesterday? 2F? No? All right, let's do 2F. Now, remember yesterday we talked about 3 kinds of problems. This was one. This was the second kind we talked about. And we treat it a little differently. Obviously, it's not an absolute value. How do we start that? Julian? We factor it. And in this case, we can factor out an x. And what are we left with when we factor out an x? X squared minus 1. Take an x out of both of these. Now tell me about x squared minus 1. It's the difference of squares, so it will factor as x plus 1, x minus 1. Now this is where it kind of is like the last one. We draw a number line, and we're going to put some dots on the number line. How do I know to put 3 dots on this number line? Julian? There's 3 x's. Every x is going to get a dot. Talked about it yesterday. What dot does this one get? 0. This one gets, that one gets -1. It's the opposite. And this one gets 1. The dots go with the opposite, just like here. The dot, or the starting point was the opposite, not the dot, but the starting point. Now what do? We pick any number. Pick a number. It does not matter. You cannot pick a dot. Pick any number other than a dot. Brittany, pick a number, not a dot. 2. So she is trying a number out here. She's picking 2. Now what's going to happen? She's going to plug 2 into her problem, and it's either going to work or it's not, right? We just need to figure that out. So if I put 2 in for all the x's, I have 2 times 3 times 1. What's 2 times 3 times 1? 6. Is 6 less than 0? No. So what does that mean about this section of the number line? It doesn't work. She picked a number, a perfectly fine number, but when we plugged it in, it did not give us what we needed, which is less than 0. So what does that mean? This section didn't work, which means this one will, this one won't, and this one will. Remember, they alternate. So all you need to do is figure out one section, pick one number, and then everything else is going to just alternate. So the answer, everything less than or equal to -1, or between 0 and 1. You shade it in between 0 and 1, the x's in between 0 and 1. Remember, when you write something like this, the symbols are always less than. So you have 0x1, right there, 0x1, and then less than. this we talked about yesterday. Now let's look at the projectile motion problem. We started this one yesterday, but we didn't get it done, and we definitely need to finish it. It is all on video. Now it's going to be on 2 videos because it's on today's also. So you need to spend a little time going back. If you're having a hard time with this, go back and watch it a couple times. Here we go. The main formula, which will be given to you, is this. Now, yesterday I went through what all these letters mean. I'm not going to do it again. In the given, a ball was thrown off the top of a building 12 feet tall with an initial velocity of 18 feet per second. You need to be able to tell me where to put the 12 and where to put the 18. Where do I put the 12 and the 18? 18 is the initial velocity, and 12 is the initial height. This is your initial velocity, this is your initial height. So that's your equation. Now when you use this equation to answer the questions that are coming up, and there are 3 questions, understand that any height is going to go here, and any seconds is going to go here. So when problem A says, when will it hit the ground? I either need to put in a height, or I need to put in a time. What do I know about a ball that's on the ground?
0.
Its height is 0. If the ball is on the ground, its height is 0. So I have this equation to solve. Kids, I cannot help you with that. You need to realize that if it's on the ground, its height is 0. Now I need to solve this equation. What kind of an equation is that? Quadratic. I have choices, don't I? I could try to factor it, and I don't want to. I could complete the square. I really don't want to do that. Why? Why do I not want to complete the square? Because step 1 is divide by negative 16, and that's going to fill this guy up with fractions, right? So I'm going to use the quadratic formula. Now, let me say something. If you want, you could divide everything by negative 2. That's if you wanted to. You don't have to. But if you divide everything by negative 2, all that's going to do for you is make your numbers a little bit smaller. So this step is completely optional. You don't need to do this. Does everybody understand that?
Yeah.
Personally, I don't like negatives out here in front, and I'd like to get rid of anything that I can. So I'm going to do this, but you don't have to. So now t equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Does that look okay to everybody using the a, b, and c from this equation? So I hear the calculators coming out. I'm totally with you on that. I'm not going to do this by hand. Again, though, you've got a double negative there, so that's going to be a plus, right? Now Now we're going to do this on the calculator because the question was, when is the ball on the ground? And I'd like to be able to say 2.5 seconds or something like that. I don't really want to have an answer like that. So I'm going to do this. Now pay attention. 9 plus the square root of 273 equals divided by 16. So t turns out to be 1.6, about 1.6. It is important that when you put in 9 plus the square root, hit equals and then divided by. Equals is enter. Enter, yeah. Now that was 9 plus, right? So here I go. 9 minus the square root of 273 equals divided by 16. I got about negative 0.47. Now tell me about that answer. Savannah, you chewing gum today? Full-size non-generic box of Kleenex tomorrow or detention. Tell me about negative 0.47. You can't have it. Well, what was the question? When is the ball on the ground? Negative 0.47 seconds? No. Keep in mind what this picture looks like, kids. The ball, we threw it from the top of the building. So it looks like this. This is the only time the ball is on the ground. This answer back here doesn't make any sense. So we throw that one out, and the answer is, when is it on the ground? 1.6 seconds. What kind of answer do we call this? We didn't make any mistakes, it just doesn't work. It's called extraneous. Question B. Same equation. This is our equation. When will it be 15 feet above the ground? So keep in mind, this is 12. It started at a building 12 feet tall. It went up, we don't know how high. But somewhere up here, it's going to be 15 feet above the ground, right? In fact, how many answers will we have? How many times is the ball 15 feet above the ground? Twice. Once on the way up and once on the way down. So this time we should get 2 answers, right? So back to our equation. Here it is. When will it be 15 feet above the ground? Kids, this is your equation. You're either going to put something in for height or you're going to put something in for seconds. Look at the problem. This is B. When will it be 15 feet above the ground? What do I do with the 15? Where does the 15 go? Height. So 15 equals negative 16t squared plus 18t plus 12. Is that another quadratic equation?
Yeah.
Yes. Before you solve it, you got to get it equal to 0. So we're going to subtract 15 from both sides. So we have negative 16t squared plus 18t minus 3. Can I reduce that one at all? No, I'm kind of stuck with it, right? So here we go with our quadratic formula again. It's t equals negative b plus or minus the square root of 18 squared. Is that 324?
Yeah.
Minus 4 times a times c. Oh, watch it. We got a ton of negatives floating around in there. So this is going to be 324. Now, ultimately, am I going to end up adding or subtracting here? Subtracting, because I've got 3 negatives. So 2 of them will cancel, but the third one won't. I want to say 192. Is that 192? So I'm going to type into my calculator, negative 18 plus the square root of, what's 324 minus 192? I'm so lazy, 132? And negative 18 minus. Now remember, when you hit negative 18 plus the square root of 132, hit enter, and then divided by negative 32. I got 0.2. Anybody else?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do negative 18 minus the square root of 132. Hit enter. Divided by negative 32. I got 0.9. Now what does that mean? That means the ball was 15 feet tall after 0.2 seconds, and again after 0.9 seconds. Does that make sense? All right, and then the last one says, again, back to the same equation. We're using the same equation every time. You're either going to plug in a height or you're going to plug in a time. Every time for this problem. So look at C. How high is it after 1 second? Where does the 1 go? In for T. That's a second. So my height will be negative 16 times 1 squared plus 18 times 1 plus 12. Just plug it in. When you do this, what gets squared?
Just the 1.
Just the 1. I got 14, but double check that. What does that mean? 14 feet. After 1 second, it is 14 feet tall. Got it? Now, problem 4, we don't have time to do it, but problem 4 is exactly the same. Let's set up our equation for problem 4. Remember, this is your baseline right here. So for problem 4, a rock is thrown from ground level with an initial velocity of 32 feet per second. So what am I going to plug into my general formula?
The VOT.
Exactly. So I'm negative 16t squared plus 32t because that's the initial velocity. And then what do I have on the end? What's my initial height? 0. How do I know it's 0? I'm on the ground. And the height is 0 when you're on the ground. So this is the equation that you're going to use for number 4. In each of the problems, you will either plug in a height or you will plug in a time depending on what they gave you. Got it? Now, remember that tomorrow you have a 2-hour delay, so prayer and pledge begin exactly 2 hours after they normally do. Keep that in mind. Your homework tonight is practice test 1. The answers are provided for you. Please check your answers so that we can talk tomorrow about what you don't get. Okay?